you had a high-profile breakfast guest.
An intimate meal, just me, Peter Dutton and 750 other people.
How'd you find him?
He's not what I expected. Albo was what I expected, pretty open, easygoing. ScoMo was what I expected, a dominating bulldozer. But Dutton was different in person to the dark, hard character he's often portrayed as. He's got a gruff public persona courtesy of his time as Homeland Affairs Minister. He was the Coalition's head kicker, as well as protecting our borders from sophisticated smugglers.
Oh! Catnip. That's no mine.
He deported a heap of bikie kingpins who were plying their trade in Australia, but weren't Australian citizens.
Leave now and ever come back!
It's because of that underworld crackdown that Peter Dutton has as much, if not more, personal security than even the Prime Minister. He's arguably the most protected person in Australia.
So if you want to go for a walk in the morning, you need to organise it the night before.
Doesn't mind taking the piss out of himself.
Or having the piss taken out of him by someone else.
So this is what happens when the boss doesn't listen to the desperate pleadings of the media advisors.
No shame there. Socrates would look like a goose eating meat on a stick.
Lips and assholes.
And he talked about the Nemesis documentary.
Grudgingly. Dutton declined to be interviewed for the ABC's three-part chronicle of the Abbott-Turnbull-Morrison governments, an era which proved talent dysmorphia is a real medical condition. They said some horrible things about you.
If I said the name Peter Dutton, what one word springs into your mind?
Thug.
I thought he had a great capacity, a very affable person, a great business mind.
Very magnanimous.
Wait for it.
I pride myself in having been a significant part of supporting Malcolm, who for all of his qualities had no political judgment at all.
And he was just getting started.
Brendan Nelson, I think, or somebody medically qualified, I think at one stage described him as an undiagnosed narcissistic psychopath. Now, that would be unkind unless you knew him. But
Still a lot of bad blood.
Lots. We just got our headline for tomorrow's newspaper, Anthony. And we did. The room was full of liberal tragics, so Peter was singing to the choir.
You suck so bad!
Yes!
He took a knife to the unions, warned us the C was back in CFMEU.
And the federal court has termed the most recidivist corporate offender in Australian history.
And he talked up his energy plan, which ain't about solar panels and wind farms. Dutton's banking on Australians becoming sceptical of the green power transition once they realised the enormity of the task at hand.
The government's proposing to put in place 28,000 kilometres of new poles and wires. Their plan is costed at $1.2 to $1.5 trillion.
Rather than blanket the country in renewable infrastructure, he wants to replace existing coal-fired power stations with SMRs.
Small modular reactors.
And not just SMRs. He wants to go balls deep and build Springfield-scale nuclear power plants.
Excellent.
When do you reckon it's going to happen?
Around the same time we stop getting screwed by health insurers.
Not gonna happen! No, not gonna happen!
The federal government doesn't build or operate nuclear power stations. Let's get that very clear.
It's pronounced nuclear.
Electricity generation is a state issue. The only thing Dutton can do is offer to heavily subsidise construction costs so people like Chris Minns and Jacinta Allen decide it's worth having the odd three-eyed fish because the juice is so cheap. Best case scenario is we would have our first station spitting out electrons in the 2030s-ish. Fair bit of wiggle room.
We don't need, we'll have a lot more to say about our policy over the coming weeks.
It's what business calls a stretch target and what people like you and me call
Bullshit.
So you're not confident?
I think Peter Dutton has as much chance of having nuclear power in the next decade as Anthony Albanese has of hitting his target of 82% renewables by 2030.
Never gonna happen.
Well, it's going to be expensive whatever we do.
And this at a time when the budget is under pressure from defence, health and Tony Burke.
57 grand.
In 4 days. That's $600 an hour, every hour, for 96 hours.
Okay, no, this could be explained.
This from a guy who was Labor's attack dog in Bronwyn Bishop's Choppergate saga. The Mr Burke goes to Washington fiasco capped off a week that Labor would probably like to forget, courtesy of the ramblings of another undiagnosed narcissistic psychopath.
I want to do you slowly. I want to do you slowly.
In his ever more desperate search for a relevance deprivation cure, Paul Keating went after his own party, accusing Foreign Affairs Minister Penny Wong of being too hard on China.
Oh, I reckon Penny can take it.
This is a woman who had the temerity to run for office whilst being openly gay and openly Asian at the same time, so she's probably heard worse from stupid white bastards, which may or may not be a racist thing to say, who knows. Keating's last national security briefing as Prime Minister probably involved the war in Chechnya.
I mean, the rubbish of it. The rubbish.
But he hasn't let his advancing years deter him from wading into the modern foreign politic.
Yeah, age no barrier to politics anymore.
Super Tuesday proved that one.
An amazing night, an amazing day.
Donald Trump is one step closer to making America great again after sweeping the Republican primaries. It's now confirmed that the world's greatest democracy will be led by a man in his 80s who has a casual relationship with the truth.
That's really bullshit.
Or a man in his 80s who has a casual relationship with cognizance.
But I'm going to go to bed.
Judgment Day's on November 5, so get set for 8 months of lies and confusion.
Hasta la vista, baby.
I'm Ben Harvey.
We'll be back.